we set productivity records in 2 of the last 4 years. And this was at a time when our baby boomer engineers and technicians were leaving us, and we brought in new millennials and new engineers to take their places. And I'll describe for you how we did that, how we made these changes, and how we set these records. In looking across the audience, I see mostly baby boomers. I see a few Generation X, and I see Dorothy Lazowski of Chemical Engineering Magazine, who's probably the only millennial that I see in the audience. So you'll have to be the spokesperson for that 1/3. And you've heard some previous speakers talk about baby boomers versus the millennials. And there are certainly vocabulary differences from the one set to the other set. And the baby boomers, like myself, are digital immigrants. We had to learn these technologies. We had to embrace. I still have 2 technicians who don't know how to turn the computers on, and they just refuse. And those are from the boomer generation. Millennials, as Dick Hill said, are digital natives. They're comfortable with the technologies. They were born with cell phones in their hands. And as new generations of technology come along, they embrace the new technologies. They enjoy, they use. They multitask. And the boomers are leaving the workforce. And it hasn't been mentioned before, but my baby boomer friends tell me stories about feeling pushed out. When you have 30 years of experience in a company, sometimes those companies are thinking, hey, if we change you out with a new college graduate, we could maybe save $100,000 a year. And so it's not just that the boomers are choosing to retire. There are other forces that are creating a younger workforce. And 10,000 per day in the United States, boomers, are leaving the workforce. And as a result, and I'm just assuming each of those baby boomers has 40 years of experience, in the United States, we are losing 400,000 years per day of experience. What a number that is. And I show there, we have considered, at least the baby boomers where I work, adding TGIM to the backs of our business cards. Thank goodness it's Monday. We enjoy what we do, especially when we achieve, especially when we satisfy our customers. And I'm not sure the millennial generation would want that on the backs of their business cards. And a very unusual incident I had with a senior technician, baby boomer, and I've never asked this of a person before or after, but there was a work problem, and I said, hey, what's more important, your job or your family? And he said, my job, because if I lose my job, my family does not eat. And he and I smiled at each other. I never had to talk to him again. But the boomer generation often puts their job very high on their list of priorities because it's that job and that salary that allows them to achieve all the other goals that they've set for their lives, for their families. The millennials. I heard I taught college for 4 years. I have an extreme amount of experience with helicopter parents coming into my chemistry lab arguing that their sons and daughters should get higher grades on the courses or the laboratory courses that I was teaching. And I heard a story about helicopter parents during job interviews, and it proved true. It's a University of Michigan study that said 4% of millennial job applicants take a parent to a job interview. I'm not making that number up. I don't know how I'd react to a parent showing up at a job interview. I don't think it'd be very good, though. Attributes of millennials: they're multitaskers. They insist on it, and that's good. Quick learners, technologically savvy, suffer from ADD, and that can be good also. They like to multitask. They like many things going on in their lives and at their jobs, and people like us can take advantage of that. They will work long hours, but not at work. They'll take the work home and work there. 66% expect career changes. This slide isn't saying job changes, it's saying career changes. And only 15% put high-paying job or good job as number one in their life goals. FRI, who am I? What do we do? We've been doing distillation research for 75 companies ever since 1954. Well, we have 75 member companies right now, and you know these people. We do distillation research for oil companies, chemical companies, engineering companies. And about 3 years ago, we got together with some friends at Yokogawa and brought a historian into our control room for the first time. We weren't doing clipboard data collections, but it wasn't much more advanced than that. And also brought in Exapilot control software. This is our little refinery in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And mostly it's just 2 distillation towers. The one on the left is 8 stories tall. And at FRI, steady state is a brief luxury. We do a turnaround every 2 months. Startups are almost a once-a-week experience. We flood these towers regularly on purpose, and our operators have to know how to get out of floods once we've identified them. We're typically transitioning from one set of set points to another set. So I could argue that our operators, our technicians, are the best in the world. Change is an every minute experience in our control rooms. And we had a problem. We had a problem in that we were on the verge of losing our best engineers and our best technician operators, baby boomers on the verge of retirement. And there are several things that we did to prepare. Maybe the biggest thing is the Exapilot software. What we ended up doing, and it took us about a year, what we ended up doing is we brought into a conference room our baby boomer engineers, our baby boomer technicians, and we programmed our startups, our transition changes, and our shutdowns. When we run these test towers, we in fact have three completely different systems. We run xylenes at vacuum, we run C6, C7 at atmospheric pressures, and we run C4s at pressures up to 400 psi. And as a result, the programming work that we had to do was triple what might be done at a normal production plant, at a normal production unit. And we programmed it. And there was some a small amount of troubleshooting work that we had to do after the programs were written, and we got through that period relatively quickly. But what this did for us is then we lost our baby boomer operators. In came a new set of operators, and wow, a computer program. Wow, I'll run that. They embraced it. They enjoy what we call semi-automatic operation. Our technicians, in fact, have two options. They can say, go, and sometimes the computer programs will start or shut down the unit, change set points. But sometimes they'll simply run the computer program as a series of prompts. And what the Millennials tell us is they've never stopped thinking, that they just don't sit back and hit the go button. They like the prompts. They like corroboration. They're alone on a night shift, and the outside technicians only know so much. It's like having our best retired baby boomer technician in the control room at all times. And so our board operator is saying, what should I do next? Well, the software says this. That's right. That's what I was going to do anyway. So it corroborates what they thought was going to be their next move anyway. Along the way, and maybe saying some slightly controversial things, we had some of our boomers and some of our millennials were indispensable. I'm worried about indispensable employees. So we brought in backups. We trained the backups. Some of the indispensables weren't too happy about this. I am happy to say that right now we have no indispensable employees, except myself, of course. In addition, we had some people on staff who proved to me that they did not want to work with us. I've attended courses like dealing with unacceptable employee behavior, dealing with difficult people, and after 40 years or so of such, I'm tired of it. And some people convinced us that they didn't want to work with us. They're gone. It wasn't easy. In fact, during this transition, we released 11 people, and none of those were easy. However, right now, we have a group of engineers and technicians who I would put against any group that you could assemble. We work together like this. We laugh all day long. And when I say hire happy people, I don't mean people who stand at water coolers and tell jokes all day. But what I'm saying is there are people who wake up angry every day. They don't like their jobs, they don't like their lives, they don't like their cars, and they infect the entire organization. And pretty soon they have friends, and they're standing off in the corners, and they're whispering about the technical director, and they're gone. When we interview, we look for people who like to smile. We look for people who like people. And when we brought in the new hires, the engineers, the technicians, that was the number one thing we looked for, was attitude. And in fact, my son is a human resources director, and he has a sign on his desk that says, hire for attitude, then train. And that has worked for us as our baby boomers have left and as we've brought in the millennials. Oh, another thing I did, I authored resumes for all my technicians, and especially with the millennials involved. And it took some time. I started with the job descriptions, and then I went person by person, and I asked, what can he do above and beyond what the others can do, or what can't he do? We had a meeting. It was during one of our shutdowns, brought the entire staff in, and I plan to do this with the engineers, but thus far I've only done it with the technicians. Handed out their resumes and with their names at the tops and their addresses and telephone numbers and email addresses, and they all asked the logical question, you want us to leave? And the answer was, no, I want you to stay. I want this group to stay. And these are the things that we've taught you. Your resume is a listing of things we've taught you and things that you've learned. And every year, I'm going to rewrite your resume. And if there aren't more items on next year's resume than last year's resume, I'm not happy with myself. We want you to learn. We want everybody to learn as many things about our plant, our little refinery there, as possible. And for millennial employees, this plays very well. We care about you. We care about the things you're learning. We want you to multitask. We want you to learn many things. Bottom line outcome. Morale was actually okay 5 years ago, but knock on wood, it's sky high. The technicians, every weekend, they all get together at somebody's house or somebody else's house, and they shoot their rifles like Oklahomans have a tendency to do. Not at me, of course. Productivity records. FRI's been in business since 1954. And our members, our 75 members, the Dows, the DuPonts, the ExxonMobils, they judge me and they judge my team on number of runs per year, number of data points. And we've historically averaged 500 runs per year. In 2010, we had 694. In 2012, we had 704. And we weren't even trying to set any records. We don't keep monthly track of how many runs. Every January, we sit down and say, hey, how many runs did we have? And we cross our fingers and we hope it was over 500. But what did we do? We kept a plan. We worked together. We changed some people out. We brought in millennials. We programmed our startups and our shutdowns and our transitions for the millennials, and things worked out. Advice? And some things I haven't mentioned. Millennials are different, and in many very good ways. But, as has been said before, expect turnovers. They have a tendency not to stick around for very long. I don't know what you've experienced, but our engineering staff, we need people with master's degrees and PhDs. And we have a hard time finding them in U.S. universities. Oklahoma State University, the MS and PhD programs are 95% foreign-born students. And I encourage you to consider them. Sometimes it takes 10 years for them to get their residency cards, but it's worth it. Millennials don't like cubicles. That doesn't surprise you. Computer screens, yeah, if you get a chance, have the computer screens facing the doorways. But that's true of the baby boomers as well, I think. Do not be surprised by parental input. A father or a mother who calls you about one of your technicians. It's happening in the colleges, and it's starting to happen in the workplaces as well. And don't fight it too hard. Just be polite. They're not bad. They're just different. And in many ways, they're better. One of our speakers this morning said, I think it was Patty, that the 40 and 45-year-olds can learn from the 20 and 25-year-olds. Very true. Thank you.